I'll do is I'll just say, so this is like the basic model, if you like, of change, where you go. There's some kind of present state, type problem state, type situation, type context, whatever that you sense is not how you would like things to be, and you have in mind some kind of desired state, which is where hopefully you have a sense that new things are possible in a kind of positive, generative sort of way, that you have a sense of agency and resources in order to kind of accomplish that, these sort of self-efficacy type beliefs, and that it's ecological and worthwhile and you deserve it, and all of those kinds of things come into play here. So it's a kind of a journey between where you are now and where you want to be. And I think often, I know, like Robert was talking, I've talked about it before, like a kind of sat-nav, you know. You go, well, you know where you are, and then you think about how you'd like things to be different. And then the issue is what kind of journey, what kind of choices, what sorts of tools and skills, models, relational support, emotional intelligence, etc., will you use to get on your journey between where you are now and where you would like to be. So in other words, this is a more of a conscious coding of this, but obviously this kind of sense of change is unfolding all the time in our lives, a sense of change and evolution. I'm not where I was a year ago. I'm not where I was last week. Things are changing, whether we kind of are aware of them or not. We're kind of updating and learning and evolving and adapting all the time. We can't not be doing that. The issue is, are we doing that in a way that, sponsors and nurtures and supports us and the people we love and the people in our community and our world? Or is there something that's like a kind of glitch in the system in a way? So the NLP model goes, there's a present state, there's some kind of desired state. We have lots of tools to help people kind of spec out both of these, and we'll practice with some of those. But there's also this idea that there are, what happens is that you close that gap by applying resources. So in other words, it's like the gap closes, so your present state, as it were, becomes your desired state becomes your present state. So you've moved into where you are now is where you want it to be. And you deal with what you might call interferences or objections or difficulties, or whatever. So that's our kind of basic thing. But there's also a bigger issue about what is change, what do we mean by change, what is wisdom, in change. And I've drawn up this map, which really should have 7 things, because all good models have 7 things. So there's a missing one somewhere, but feel free to fill it in for me. Because I did this kind of on the back of a soggy envelope while my, radiator valve had blown out in my kitchen yesterday. So what I thought was, so this is probably completely incomprehensible, but on the one hand, so these are like levels of change, if you like. So on the one hand, and we're all in all of them around different kinds of issues, probably. I put the first one is like we don't even know there's a problem. It's like we're asleep. It's like we are fishing water. We don't know there's a problem. So in a way, one of the long-standing things, and in fact, it's John Grinder always used to talk about it, like, why would you do therapy and adjust people to a mad world? So in other words, we live in a mad world which has distorting impact on the whole way that we function in our lives. And I've brought in, the Master and His Emissary, anybody who hasn't yet read that, about this kind of post-Enlightenment prioritizing of left hemisphere technological dead type thinking, categorizing over cognitive type thinking, out of balance with the kind of unconscious, more right hemisphere, more gestalt-like, contextualizing, living kind of thinking, dynamic, living, interacting, relational kind of thinking. It's the kind of update of all the 90s left brain, right brain. It's very, very subtle and interesting. And of course, we live in that world. And that's sort of what that book, Turtles All the Way Down, was about as well. It's like going, well, we're living in this highly distorted technological world where that has an impact on the way that we think about ourselves, our relationships, our goals. Everything's in a distortion. But for us, it feels normal. We kind of go, problem? What problem? Where those fish going, water? What water? That little joke where there's a fish going one way and two going the other way. And they go, what's the water like up there? I go, water? What water? We're like that really. It's like we're asleep. It's very hard to wake up out of this kind of illusion that what feels normal is kind of okay and is unproblematic. I mean, the same is true, those of you that know me know that I do Alexander technique lessons. I'm always joking, I've spent 30 years, going to lessons very, very regularly, all the time, like to help me get in and out of a chair. I kind of go, it sounds really boring. And feel free to laugh, because yes. Because basically, but what you're doing in Alexander technique has this great phrase. And the phrase is, debauched kinesthesia. I mean, what a brilliant thing to say to, to be able to throw around in conversation. And what it means is, because our habits of our somatic, the way that we're embodied, because we get tense and hold our shoulders, and then we do it again and again all the time until now we hold our shoulders like this, and it feels normal. There isn't a problem with my shoulders. They are tense, but I'm not aware of it. And so then, when I try and kind of go, oh, I've got this terrible lower back pain, or I keep getting headaches or something, we kind of go and do something else about that, because we haven't noticed it's normalized. These distortions and disturbances in the field and in our bodies, and in the whole way that we're doing things, has become normal. When did it become normal that, half the world's population lives in poverty? When did it become normal that we've burnt all the forests down and things like that? I mean, I won't go on. But it's like, actually, it's not normal, but we forget. Things should not be like this. Things should not be like this. But we don't know. So it's not a problem. So in other words, what I want to say in terms of problem specification is, it's not that I'm trying to give you problems that you didn't know you had. So in a way, that is my job. As a kind of teacher. It's to sort of bring a kind of awareness, not just to the areas that are already in the spotlight for us, but to go, what else is happening? What else do I need to kind of wake up around? And it's very interesting. I'm on Twitter. I never thought I'd enjoy Twitter, but I love it, and I follow lots and lots of different things. And I'm actually following the All Black Lives Matter movement in the States, which is just utterly brilliant. Those young people, they're such amazing activists. There's just some amazing people in this movement who are doing the most fantastic things. It really is like second wave Martin Luther King. It's just amazing. And their thing that they have is stay woke. They say, like, stay woke. It's like we've woken up to this kind of, I mean, not that people were asleep, but it's like there's amazing injustices. And like, stay awake, stay woke. So there's an issue here that we don't know when a problem is a problem sometimes. It's like those kind of unconscious incompetence models, or the unknown unknowns. It's like that sort of area where we don't really know. And we think everything's fine, and maybe it isn't. Then I think I've got as my second stage, where one of the things we can do is say, there is a problem, but it's not my problem. There's a great book called Mistakes Were Made, but Not by Me, which which is a story. It's like the cognitive bias of, in a way, outsourcing the locus of blame, to outside of yourself. So in other words, you go, it's your problem. My anger, my behavior, my rules, that's not my problem. Well, I'm not going to deal with anything about that. That's going to be your problem. And you are the problem, even. It can even go further down that line, can't it? So this is like projection, but it's also not realizing that my rules and my behavior aren't normal. Again, you have families where this is happening. You have families where, you have families here, thinking of Teresa, with your work being in the room, where people kind of go, I didn't know it wasn't all right for everyone to abuse each other. That was just our family. That was just normal. And then suddenly you kind of, children are taken into care or whatever, and you kind of go, oh my God, that's not a normal way to live. We shouldn't be living like that. But then you have this next level where you kind of go, yeah, well, it's your problem if you can't adjust to kind of these rules in the household or these rules in a society. Then I think another level of problem is to go, there is a problem. I do own it, but you can't change it. So it's a problem we just all have to live with. It's like DNA, or it's like, my temperament, or it's like how things just are. It is a problem, but it's like, what can you do? What can you do? You can't do anything about that, can you? That's just human nature for people to be greedy and nasty and violent and things like that, There's nothing we can do. So why even bother? It's like a sort of helplessness as well, on the one hand, and a kind of carelessness on the other, I think. Why even bother to do that? Then I think at the next level, we kind of go, there is a problem, and we're going to solve it. And we're going to solve it in these hugely control, unecological, unsystemic kind of ways. So, for example, in public services, we're going to set targets. So then you get ambulances waiting on the forecourt for 6 hours because the rule is, then there's only this 2-hour rule when you get into A&E. So then, or you get kind of all these distortions going on around reading or things like that. Or with individuals, you get things like, right, well, I'm going to go on a diet, or I'm going to start going down the gym, or, I'm going to try and stop that behavior. I remember once working with someone, and we were just doing 6-step reframing actually on a practitioner program. And, in 6-step reframing, we have this metaphor that you sense that it's like a part of you wants to carry on doing a behavior, but the rest of you doesn't. So it's got that kind of structure. You kind of go, oh, I'm out of rapport with myself. It's like there's two of me, So one of the things in 6-step reframe, you go inside and you communicate with this sort of so-called part. What's the part of you that is wanting this behavior X? Blah, blah, blah. You do it kind of unconsciously. You're looking to calibrate the non-verbal unconscious signals. And I always remember this woman going, well, my part, she said, it's like a little elf in the forest, and she's like peeking out at me. And I kind of went, oh, that's really sweet, well done, because obviously one of the things is, you get out of rapport with these parts, you can talk to them, blah, blah. It's all a metaphor, by the way, we're not crazy about it. Yeah. Only done your day, you may not have got there. And then she went, and I really want to talk to her. And I kind of went what's this? And it's a control metaphor. I've got a behavior that I don't want. What I really want to do is crash the lid down on it. I want that change. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to will one half of me to gang up on the other half. That is often how we try and solve things. Or we solve things without a kind of real sort of what we say in NLP, like ecology. What are the systemic ripple on, kind of effects of a change? And do you want them, do you not want them? Because you've got to kind of pull in and make adjustments throughout the whole system in order for a change to be really effective. Otherwise you change one part and everything else goes out. I mean, it's the same thing with people doing exercise, where people go, oh, my back hurts, so what I'll do, sorry about that, so what I'll do is, you know, I'll go to the gym and kind of get really strong, but then they're just strengthening these muscles, and meanwhile, relatively, the other ones are weakening. So then putting your back out again, kind of thing. So is this sort of interesting?
Yeah.
And so then I think what I would call, and actually NLP is used in this way. Not so good, more conscious cognitive NLP can be used by people in those kind of ways. Right, we're going to get a well-formed outcome, we're going to do the swish pattern, we're going to anchor my positive state, you know, till I feel really, really great, you know, and it's like there's a lot of, it's very sort of effortful and elegant and unsystemic in the end, and then the kind of problem, you know, comes back in some other way. So then there's more systemic NLP, which you would say that it's more ecological. There are more these kind of integrated, beautiful approaches where you are really taking into account the whole system. You're calibrating the unconscious and as well as the conscious. You're bearing much more in mind, which is actually one of our themes of the day, that what Erickson said, who was one of the original models for NLP, who was this hypnotherapist, he said the only real problem that people have is that their conscious and unconscious minds are out of rapport with each other. And so here, you're really checking your work with those kind of unconscious signals that people give, like, is that a whole piece of work? Has the whole system, is that beneficial to the whole system? And all the systems that person is in, is that healthy? Is it wise? Like, what sort of change is that? And then I think there's like a kind of sense of the sort of bigger, which is sort of what we're doing today, which is feeding in, rather than doing particular models, particular techniques, we're looking at, supposing there was a way of being, and of being in the world, being in our own bodies, relating to ourselves and other people, finding this kind of livable life, as Judith Butler calls it, you know, but holding our compassion and tenderness for ourselves, others, and the world. And that was something that we could bring in a way, into all and every situations, in a generative way. So we're not trying to solve one problem today, in a way. We're trying to look at what are the kinds of conditions in which we can sort of optimize the whole system to be in a more kind of holistic way of being. Not that there will never be any problems again, but the way that we encounter them, the way that we can make them livable, and the way that we can contribute and participate is like taken to the best level, you know, living our best lives, as Oprah would say, you know. And here, of course, we've got like another bit of what the world is like. So this is like the crazy Western technological world, which is feeding in all the time, everywhere. And then on the other side, I've put this kind of world of loving and love and social justice and global ecology and all of those kinds of things that, you know, where we know and we sense there's a better way to live for all of us than this. And I think, especially, I think in the week, I don't know, there was that lovely Canadian astronaut who was showing some of his pictures on Channel 4 News. They're just so beautiful, of our little planet, what Joni Mitchell says, our little garden planet, oasis in space, you know. And it's like, in a way, is there a way to come from there? Is there a way to come from there? Bring that somehow into our systems. Not to kind of go, oh, I'm all love and compassion, but over here I'm full of hate and wrath, you know. It's like we've got to hold our survival responses, our fear, our anger, our sadness. We've got to find a way of being with our own feelings, which I always think that Richard Moss quote, you know, there's only two things that human beings have a problem with. They believe their own thoughts, and they're scared of actually experiencing their own feelings, or our own feelings. We believe our own thoughts. The only time we have a problem is when we're believing our own thoughts and we can't feel our own feelings. We're frightened to feel them. We're overwhelmed by them. We don't know how to experience our own feelings. Maybe our deeper feelings of anger or grief or sadness. Or for some people, even joy and ecstasy. Like, I can't hold that. I can't hold my whole human experience.